Hi, everybody. My name is Jackie G, and welcome to another Art Talk Tuesday. Our company is Gwartzman's Art Supplies, and we're located in downtown Toronto. If you ever get a chance to visit us, we'd love to see you in our store. And if not, you can check out our company online at gwartzmans.com, also through all social media. If you want to see what we do and you enjoy the chat that we have today with our special guest, you can check them out on YouTube and see all the interesting conversations that we've had over the years. I always look forward to having a guest. I think it's a great way for you to connect with a new supplier, someone new in our industry, or someone who actually has been around a long time that you may not know what they've been doing. And it's a great way to introduce you to them, to their product. It gives me an opportunity to also tell you why we're working with them and how excited we are to sort of connect with, I always say people I've known in the industry. The art material industry is actually a very small industry. It always seems massive to a lot of people, but you get to know your suppliers and they always feel like they're family. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit today what we're doing. My guest today is Willow Wolfe. I'm not going to give you too much of an introduction because that's going to be part of our conversation today. But I did want to tell you that we are going to be having a special event with Willow next month. So if you've always wanted to learn, you want to know how to paint, you want to know what it is, you want the easiest way. I know it can be intimidating. Believe me, I have heard from a lot of people over the years on just understanding how to get started. So we're doing this great event with Willow on February the 11th. It'll be a Zoom class. You can sign up on our website and it will also be on Eventbrite. If you have questions, my staff understand it far better than I. Let's just say I will be there. I'm going to be moderating on February the 11th. It'll be at 2 p.m. Toronto time. So any of you that are tuning in from anywhere in North America or abroad, please remember it's 2 p.m. Toronto time. I use my phone when I want to, change the time so I know exactly what my timeline is. And I look forward to seeing you again. If you have questions about that, you can always connect with us. So we're going to open it up so we can get started with our chat with Willow. If you do have questions, and I know often people do, you can send them in through Instagram and our staff will let me know, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. There's just, always a lot to try and answer. I hope you enjoy it. If you like what you see, you can also like us on Instagram. We love to hear your feedback. So I think we've opened it up already to our guest. There we are. Hello, Willow. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, good, good. If there's any technical issues, I'm sure they'll be scrambling in the background to
Hey.
make sure that it's okay. I want to thank you very much for joining us today. I think it's a real treat, and I know you had asked me about writing a bio about myself, but I did want to share with everyone. It's funny how, as I said before, that our industry is actually quite small. And you and I have actually kind of known each other for a long time. I remember when we used to do the decorative art shows way, way back. I don't even know how many years ago those were. And I remember that you were always teaching at the time, and you always had such a great response to your classes when we were, always out at the airport in Toronto. Those are the ones that I did.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you were traveling a lot more. And then I know you did other things within our industry, and past few years, you've gone in a completely different direction, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Yes. Yeah. It's been, I think I started travel teaching when I was probably 19, 20 years old. So over 25 years ago now. I'm definitely dating myself. So it's been over 25 years I've been traveling throughout Canada and then North America and globally for the last 10 years. So so it's been wonderful. We have known each other for quite some time. Toronto is was my first big trip into the big wide world as a small town Winnipeg girl, and I was just amazed at when I first got to Toronto the first time, and loved kind of how warm and welcoming it was there. It was my first convention. It was my first time teaching a large group of people, and just fell in love with it and the atmosphere, and kind of made some lifelong friends, obviously, that I still work with today. So a great experience, and teaching is my first love. I do a lot of different things, but teaching is something and teaching in person especially, and teaching live is still is still where kind of what I call home for sure.
And certainly now it's a lot easier to teach live than it used to be, right? Live, either like the way we're chatting today, or live in front of an audience.
Yeah, I think, with I did not teach. I now do a lot of pre-recorded and live classes online. I didn't do that until COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we opened our classes to online classes, and we now have over 75,000 students online. So it's changed the world for us, and it's allowed us to sort of reach a whole new audience of students with what we call micro classes, all the way to intensive classes that have 7, 8 projects in them, that expand in all mediums, oil, acrylic, and watercolor. So it's really opened the world for everyone to learn new things in new ways. And for people that couldn't travel to learn something new, it's given them a broader opportunity to try a new medium, to try a new technique, and really just keep creativity limitless in a really great, exciting way, which I think is fantastic.
Wow, yeah, I know it's amazing how now we can connect with people all over the world, either to learn something new, and there's just everyone is wanting that yearning to learn, and it's because we're not limited anymore to our own either area or country or teacher. I mean,
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
yeah, absolutely.
So I just had so you've obviously, you saw my question, so you've already answered the first one about how long you've been teaching. Um, and I read in your bio that you've published several books. How many books have you published?
So printed books that went into printed circulation through places like Barnes and Noble, Indigo, things like that, over 15 printed books, hundreds of ebooks to date, but 15 printed books. All of them are painting related. Um, and the 15 printed books, back in the day, I always say back in the day, but back in the day, the printed books were an unbelievable way to kind of reach new audiences, because they would hit places like Michael's, or they would go to Barnes and Noble, and large stores, and people would pick up a book. They would say, who's this teacher? And that's how you would get invited to go travel teach somewhere, or to go to a new location. And printed books were kind of the way we got discovered, or the way people learn new techniques, or they would see you in a library, because a book would end up in a library. And then as things evolved, we began to do ebooks, which I've now done probably over 150 ebooks of 5 or more projects. Books we're going back. We're actually launching another printed book in March of this year, probably 2 or 3 more. I miss them. I'm one of those people that still likes to open a book and, fold over the corner of the page when I read it. Or if I'm painting, I still open a painting book and have it sitting beside me. So I miss a printed book. So we're going to actually return to that. But yeah, quite a few books, and still love doing them, and still love the ability to kind of see them go somewhere and have people be able to learn from them. Kind of something I love doing for sure.
Isn't though, I do remember those decorative art books, aren't they a lot more involved to sit down and write out the details of each technique and what's the next step, as opposed to being in front of a class?
Yes, but I find with classes, I do the same thing anyway. So almost every class that I teach, for example, online, comes with an ebook. Almost all of them have an ebook with it. So when somebody takes a majority, not all of them, but you'll notice on my online classes, the ones that people sign up for that have 6 or 7 projects, most of them come with an ebook with photos, with a palette, listing included, that tell them what supplies they need. So I do that with most of those things anyway, as a guide for people to follow along with, just because I think it's such a good reference. The books are more work in the way that if I do worksheets with them, for example, where there's a step-by-step worksheet that comes with it, painting those worksheets literally will take me a week for one worksheet. So to do a printed book takes 3 months on average of solid work. To do a class takes to be honest, about a month and a half to do a brand new class. So a book takes longer work. So it's interesting. Probably from the time perspective, a class makes more sense, but there's just something nostalgic that I love about books that where I still think people like to be able to buy them and have them on hand.
And are your books published in any other languages?
Not yet. We are being asked tremendously right now for French. We are being asked for closed caption video. We're actually looking for a lot of requests for closed caption video, which we're looking into. We're being asked for French, Japanese, Spanish. So we're starting to get requests and looking into how we might make that happen to reach a broader audience. And I think we'll start looking at that in 2025. Closed captioned earlier, I think, but and with technology, I'm not super tech savvy. I think with things like AI, things like closed captioning, I think there's ways now where we'll be able to kind of make some of those things happen a little bit faster. When it comes to translation, translation's more difficult, not more difficult, but difficult in art because it's not a literal translation. So we find, for example, translating into French, we use a technique called floating. The literal translation for floating requires some work. And you really do need someone to translate who's also an artist so that they understand how to translate in a way that's actually going to be relatable in that language. That requires time and making sure that that you're working really closely with the translator. So that's a dream of mine to have them in other languages, but takes some time for sure.
Yeah, I can appreciate that.
Yeah,
Nothing,
yeah,
nothing happens exactly, as quickly or the way you want it, and it does take time if you want to do it right. I
100%.
I
Yeah,
completely get it.
yeah.
Um, so what prompted you to create your own brush line?
So since I believe I was 21 or 22 years old, when I owned a retail store in Winnipeg, Manitoba for about 5 years. And during that time period, we were buying brushes and we couldn't get, in many instances, the type of brush or the quality that we were looking for. So we began working with manufacturers. I began working with manufacturers to design brushes behind the scenes. So I've actually been designing brush lines behind the scenes for almost 25 years now. And it was exciting. It was like art to me to learn how the brushes were made, to go to factories and watch them be made. And making brushes is an art form, and it's there's a lot of hand skill in making a brush. So they're not machine made in the way that you would think that that many things are machine made today. So a handle may be, spun by machine so that the handle dowel is made by machine, but the way that the hair is formed in a mold is not machine made the way that you would think that they would be. So I became fascinated with the process, with the length of time it took to make a brush, with how different shapes were made. And I just fell in love with brush making. So it's been almost 25 years. I've probably designed and developed brushes for every major manufacturer in the industry behind the scenes. And in 2019, it was time that I did it for myself. I thought it's time that I take the leap of faith that I can do this on my own, and that I put my own name behind it and call it a Willow Wolfe brand. And I have a relationship with brush makers across the world that are the best in the industry, and we paired together and met and kind of fulfilled a dream where we worked on making the best brushes that we possibly could, and launched Calia, which happened in late. We launched Calia in 2019, but we really didn't release it for sale until 2020. So it's only been a couple of years and we actually have global distribution today. So it happened pretty quickly, but it's been making brushes for almost 25 years now. It's been a while.
Well, I know I've seen you at the trade shows, so I can attest to your involvement in the industry in brush making. And I have to tell you that our staff have been looking at a lot of the sets that we have and can't get over how beautiful they are. I mean,
Thank,
they're absolutely gorgeous.
thank you. Yeah,
I didn't I didn't bring any out because I figure at the time when we can show them all, we'll do something just to showcase all of the brushes that we have from you.
yeah.
And you primarily work in watercolor and water mixable oil.
I work in all three mediums. The classes that I have out right now, just based on demand, my first love personally, for most of what I do is water mixable oil. The brushes that I have are good for all media. They're good for watercolor, acrylic, or water mixable oil. The Calia line is a mixed media line. When I paint, I love water mixable oil because it's forgiving, it cleans up easily. I began in traditional oil. You have hours to blend your paint and play with it and change what you're doing. I make a lot of mistakes. It's easy to fix a mistake in an oil-based paint. So that's kind of my first teaching love. I find students respond well to a water mixable oil, because if you make a mistake, it's really just forgiving and relaxing. Watercolor is fun and freeing and relaxing once you kind of learn the basic techniques. I find water mixable oil, to be honest, easier to learn than watercolor is. To be frank, I find that it's a little bit more forgiving. So with watercolor, you have to kind of plan ahead a little bit what you're going to do. So there's differences. They're both amazing, but there's differences to both. So based on my first love, which was water mixable oil, those were my first classes that I launched online. Watercolor based on demand. Everybody said we want watercolor classes right away. We launched watercolor next. We're launching acrylic classes February 15th. So there'll be a whole range of new acrylic classes coming out. So we do all three. Acrylic is an amazing medium as well. They're all just different. So depending on what style you're working in, what look you're going for, I mean, they're all just kind of, they all just have a different feel, a different look, and different properties to them that work well for whatever the purpose is. But we definitely work in all three. Calia is a unique brush line in that, and it's expensive to make a brush line this way, but it's unique in that some filaments, I'm just going to pull out one of the brushes here. So this is a round brush, which is a synthetic sable. It's very well used. Some filaments are made with a very, very smooth filament so that the paint flows right off the tip. Really great for watercolor. Some filaments are made so that it actually pulls the paint and water into it, and it distributes really, really kind of slowly and cautiously. So different brushes are made with different blends and different filaments to work ideally for different mediums and different applications. So it's a really unique brush line in that you'll look at it and go, they have different looking hair, different looking filaments, different looking shapes and sizes, and just really unique properties depending on the purpose that you want.
Very interesting. Now, going back to the name Calia, which I know you wrote the definition, is beautiful.
Yeah, yes, the name, yes, it is. Yeah.
What language is it from?
It's Old Greek. So, but Calia itself is, whether it's pronounced in modern English would essentially be a derivative of Calliope, is how most people would say it, it was just Old Latin for beautiful or to live with beauty kind of idea.
Oh, very interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
I learned something new today. Was it difficult to come up with the name for your brushes?
I come up with names all the time. What is incredibly difficult is to find something that is not trademarked in some way, shape, or form. And in today's trademark market, people trademark a name like, I'm just going to use the name Bailey. I'm looking at my glasses, or Bailey Nelson. So if you trademark the name Bailey for the drink Bailey's and it's under trademark classification 2, it could be trademarked for a million different things. So it's almost impossible to find a name that's available by trademark. So you can come up with really beautiful names for things, and it's taken in a million different places. So it's easy to find a name. It's really hard to find one that's actually available. Calia, luckily enough, was the name that just popped into my mind when I first thought of my first brush line. And it was definitely available, which was awesome. So Calia, and we have other brush lines as well. And they all were available when we found them, which was great.
Wow, that is great. Well, I guess if nothing else, you've got some great names to work off of if you do an extension of different brushes.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, great. And in making your brushes, how did you decide on all the different styles that you wanted to make?
Artists. So I am an artist. So there's always things where I say, oh, I wish I had that. Oh, I need that. This would work really great for this purpose. But often it's other artists who call me, who write me, who through the years have said, it would be really great if a brush did the following things, but I can't find one like that. And so you design one that works like that. The Dodo dry brush is a brush that I wanted for years and years and years. And it was sort of designed off the idea that I would try to smash a brush and ruin a brush. I've got one right here. It's really tiny. This one's quite well used. I wanted a brush that had a stiff synthetic feel, didn't ruin very quickly, so that lasted a really long time, but that I could use to create dry brush effects that would give me lots of texture. So we created the Dodo dry brush, but I didn't want it to wear too quickly. Natural bristle wears really, really quickly. So I made a synthetic bristle that holds its shape and lasts longer. Ironically, other artists started using it and said, this is great for trees. And they showed me how. This is great for bushes and clouds. And they showed me how. So the Dodo dry brush has become probably one of our best selling brushes for trees, bushes, foliage. It's just an amazing kind of all-purpose brush that works for lots of different things. So often it's other artists who will say, I need a brush for XYZ. Can you make me one? We'll make it. People will start to like it. And then it ends up as an extension of the line.
Okay, so now I have to ask, because that was one of the questions. How did you come up with the name Dodo? Because
So I love,
I just loved it because of the name, but
yeah.
why that particular name?
So we made the decision when we launched, I made the decision when I launched Calia that it would be a cruelty-free line, meaning that there would be 0 natural hair brushes in the line. Having seen how the natural hair production occurs, I couldn't do it. And it's difficult to do that because there are some brushes that are hard to make with synthetics, and it's getting better and better, and it's getting easier and easier. But for example, it's really difficult to make a deerfoot brush well out of synthetic hair. So our line doesn't contain a deerfoot brush yet because I have yet to approve a deerfoot in synthetics that I like. I won't approve anything I don't fall in love with. So when we looked for brush names, I looked for names that represented creatures in the past that were extinct because we had made mistakes in how we treated them. Dodo birds were one of them. Moas were one of them. And dodos are flightless birds from the island of Mauritius who were hunted to extinction. So the dodo became, and also just I think it's a great name. And I have a little gold charm from Dodo, Italy, that from my first trip to Italy. So I just thought this is a really great way to kind of honor some of those creatures in the world that have been not as well respected or represented as they should be. And we can kind of continue to honor them in a cruelty-free brush line that speaks to their name.
That's very, very cool. That should be on your website in your description of your brushes.
It
What
should, yes.
what other names have you used that are,
The
or are those, are you adding to it?
We're adding to it. So we have the Dodo, the Moa, and we actually have 4 new brush types coming out that we're looking at. We're just finalizing the trademarks on now that all have extinct animal names in them as well. So, and there's a new brush line coming out called Wolf. It's trademarked already, which is a little bit of what it looks like is really, really cool. And the purpose of the line is really cool, but there's some new names in that line that I think are going to just be fantastic and speak to that same philosophy and thought process. It's fun. It's not cheap to keep making new brushes, but sometimes it's just fun. So occasionally, my fiance Darren and I will sit down and he'll say, "You want me to design what?" And I'll go, "Wolf," and it has like its logos kind of looks like fangs a little bit in the W's, and sometimes we just make stuff because it's just fun. And then if it sells, great, and if it doesn't, we had fun making it.
Oh, that's a great attitude.
Yeah.
But I do look forward to seeing all those new brushes, by the way.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks for letting us know. So tell me about your classes, and because we are stocking the brushes that you have, so we have I believe the majority, if not all of your sets. I know we've put together a package of I think it's with the watercolors. We've got the Van Gogh, and I know we've got your water mixable set by Cobra. Tell us about the classes that you offer. Are they for absolute beginners? There are different grades of classes that people can take? Can they move from one step to another? How does it work?
Yeah, so majority of our classes, I teach in a way that almost always introduces basic techniques in every single class. So you can pretty much take any class and pick it up fairly quickly. If there's a class that is going to be intermediate, we're actually about to launch what's called the Birds and Flowers Master Class. That one I would recommend you have a beginner class first because it is going to jump into some more advanced techniques. We have a couple of classes that are specifically designed for beginners. Beginner Birds and Flowers, or beginner botanicals. And you'll see right in the name, it will say beginners. You'll see, quick and easy watercolor, quick and easy watercolor flowers. So it kind of delineates the beginner aspect of the class right in the name of it. However, we find a lot of intermediate to advanced artists like the classes as well, just because it will cover techniques in a way they may not have seen before. One thing that's unique in our teaching process is that it is truly a step-by-step process. We really break teaching down into a series of steps all the way from, how to, and we supply line drawing. So if you know how to draw, that's great. If you don't, every class has a line drawing. So if you're not comfortable drawing yet, you can definitely use our line drawings. If you are comfortable drawing, feel free to draw. So if you want to trace your line drawing out, you can. We then cover everything from your basic undercoating, color usage, why you should use certain colors, what a split primary palette looks like and why it's great. So we take the guesswork out of color mixing. We take the guesswork out of why you need certain supplies. And we're very conscious of the fact that as a beginner, you're maybe a little bit, if you are a beginner, intimidated by, oh my goodness, do I need a million supplies? You don't need a million supplies to get started. You need the basics, and here's why. And we go very step by step in an incremental way, project by project. So you complete one project at a time, and they get incrementally more advanced, meaning you learn something new every single project that you complete. So you basically feel good every time you're done one. And I'm the same way. I like to feel good whenever I complete a project. And I still learn that same way. So we've really figured out a way to break learning down in a method that that builds skills, and then it elevates individuals to a point where you can go off and paint on your own. Or if you want to take the next project, you can come back and take more projects. Our beginner classes are ridiculously underpriced in the sense that we offer them usually for anywhere from $10 to $30 for 4 to 10 projects sometimes. The reason is our goal is to have as many people explore creativity as possible. So if we can get people painting and feeling happier because we think painting makes people feel happier, we're happier. And I think that once they start and they branch out into that kind of force of creativity that makes us all kind of feel better about ourselves, then we're doing what we should be doing as a purpose-driven business. And we really kind of believe in that purpose. So our classes are really, really affordable. And then people can kind of branch off and explore mediums and do different things from there.
I think that's fantastic. Are there classes where someone could actually ask you for feedback?
Yeah, so not we have about 6 in-person classes coming up this year throughout Canada, but not as many live Zoom classes yet. We don't know, quite frankly, the technology. I don't know how to do it yet. That's just me not being super tech savvy. I think that we've tried it twice through some groups, and we had lower enrollment, to be honest, but that was through 2 specific groups, but we only tried it twice. I think we would like to try it again. And I think that was 3-4 years ago. We just don't know the technology well enough yet to even know how to run one. But I think it would be great to do it. Now, we have done Facebook Lives a few times and have had, quite a few participants and lots of feedback and lots of, stuff like that. We've done lots of live demonstrations with lots of back and forth feedback. We love those. So lots of things like that. And then the one we're doing with you, I think, which is going to be, we're about to give you an actual line drawing that people can use if they want a new kind of project photo so that people can follow along with it. So it'll be a full-blown class for a really, really low price, which is great, that people can follow along with and then, get feedback as they go. What's challenging is, as we're growing and learning, and I think we're going to look for more feedback in this way, in Zoom, you can do breakout rooms. And I think we're going to have to learn the technology to maybe find a way to do some classes where people can show you their work, get feedback from you one-on-one or 2 or 3-on-1, and kind of go back and forth that way in a way that people feel comfortable with. So no one's put on the spot or doesn't feel like others can see their work if they don't want them to. Hope that makes sense.
It's amazing how things are changing like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll have the opportunity to have you in Toronto, and then we can really have a full-blown class here.
Yeah.
It'll give us a chance for you and I to chat without having to do it from so far away.
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love that. It's interesting. All my, I love Toronto, as I mentioned before. It's kind of like my home away from home, and all my best friends live there as well. So it'd be great to come out and see you and spend some time, run a class, and that would be awesome. So yeah.
Anytime. Is there anything else you'd like to share about what you've been doing or your brush line? How many, let me ask you, how many sets are there? Because I know that when you were showing me all the different sets that you make, how many in total are there?
In Calia, I think there's 16, 16 sets, 8 to 16 sets. We're about to launch another one. And then I think we'll launch 2 more late this year for the new acrylic books that are coming out and 2 new acrylic classes. It's interesting. The Calia sets are definitely our best sellers for sure. People love them. And the unique thing with the Calia sets is they often correspond to different classes. We design our sets around kind of what we've learned over 25 years of great purpose-driven artist needs. So some of the watercolor flower sets, those are the best-selling brushes that you see often in, a 2-round, a 6-round, a 12-round, and a smaller brush that you would often see when people paint watercolor flowers. Those are the best-selling brushes for painting watercolor flowers. So we're very cautious in how we design those sets to try to fit, what people are looking to do with the purpose of those sets. But one thing I will say that we're learning is you may look at one of our sets. If it says watercolor flowers, doesn't mean you have to use it for watercolor. Those are mixed media brushes. So you could actually use it for acrylic and you could use it for oil if you wanted in a certain way. And that's something I think is important for people to know. As businesses, we often label our brushes with a idea of what we think a good purpose is, but it's a little bit of a misnomer, and we're kind of questioning our decision to do that sometimes, because it's great because they're great for watercolor flowers, but you could actually use it for any medium. So it's a little bit confusing in that way, and I wanted to just address that. We've actually had about 5 emails in the last 2 weeks asking that question. So it is a mixed media line, can be used for any medium. We just picked those sets specifically because they're great, those specific 3 sets or 4 sets for watercolor painting.
I think also typically everyone thinks that because it's a short handle, it has to only be used for watercolor.
True.
And what we have found also is that often you can use them. Not everyone is comfortable with a long handle. So it's great to know that, they can use your brushes in so many different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. And a lot of people have different preferences. I use short handle for watercolor, acrylic, or oil because that's my preference. I also paint oil on a desk. I don't paint it on an easel. So it's also going to depend on what your studio setup is like, how you paint, and the different way that you paint. That's going to impact what style of brush that you choose. So yeah, I think it's just going to depend sort of how you set yourself up to paint. The other thing I want to mention about our brushes that's also unique in this brush line specifically is the quality of handle and ferrule. It's a solid brass ferrule. It's actually gold plated. It's real gold plated so that it doesn't corrode. It doesn't rust. It's glued extra so that it doesn't fall off the handle, and that handle is a multi-layer coating so that the handles are crack resistant. So we really want them to last people a long time and just make sure that the quality is maintained.
Is the glue that's used in the ferrule, is it vegan?
Vegan in the sense that it's not animal glue?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
To know. But we still don't recommend that the brushes sit in water for a long time.
No, never.
Even though that it's got, multi-layers on the handle and the glue is excellent.
No.
Okay.
And when people sit brushes in water, and it's interesting because if you sit a brush in water for any length of time like this, it's not just so, and I think the misnomer is, especially if you sit a brush in water like this, no matter how good it's glued and no matter how good the varnish is on the handle, you're still letting water seep into here a little bit. But really what you're also doing is you're sitting your brush face down on something. It's going to damage the tip of the brush. It's going to damage the bristles. The other thing I see a lot of, and even I do it myself, is when people wipe their brushes off, they're doing this on paper towel. It's basically like you're rubbing your brush on sandpaper. So just a few tips is to always make sure that be gentle when you're wiping your brushes. And I really notice it a lot when I'm painting lately. I'm trying to be a little bit more gentle and keep those brushes nice and straight, but you never want to be sitting a brush in anything that's upside down, because really what you're doing is you're damaging the tips of those brushes and those bristles, which is never a good idea for sure.
And if you bought nice brushes, you want to make sure they last a long time.
100%. Yeah. No, I think what I want to do, I would really like to thank you. We appreciate your partnership. We're really excited about what's coming up. We're really excited about coming to Toronto and hopefully teaching in person and doing more Zooms and live classes and just also supporting Canadian businesses and supporting local businesses that that have history and are thriving and working hard to support artists on their journey.
I feel the same way about you. I'm just going to see if there's any questions that came in. My
Sure.
staff have been, I think, busy writing things down, so I'm going to just check with them and see. I think we've got a few things that. Oh, okay. Okay, so someone asked about oil painting. They said
Yeah.
that they've heard that oil painting is toxic. Are water mixable oils better?
So when we talk about oil painting, it's interesting because the rumor that oil painting is toxic has been around for a very long time. And so the question I always ask is, what part of oil painting is toxic? What would be toxic in any paint, oil, acrylic, or watercolor could be what the paint is made with, for example. So if it's made with lead-based pigments, if it's made with something that's toxic in the way the paint is made, and it wouldn't matter what medium it's made with, it would matter how that paint is formulated. And in the 1960s and 50s and 40s, a lot of paints were made with lead-based pigments, and the toxicity would really impact you when that paint was in its powdered form, which you'll see some behind me, and they're well sealed, because if that powder ever spilled, and a lot of it is cadmium, some of those pigments are hundreds of dollars an ounce. If it ever spilled and that dust went into the air and it were filled with lead-based pigments, that would be toxic. But in its emulsified kind of mixed formulation, it would be very hard for it to be toxic. What was toxic about oil painting back in the day, which and still would be today, is the mediums and the terpenoids and the thinners. Those things can be considered quite dangerous. So using toxic mediums, using turpentines and things like that, even odorless, because if you don't smell something doesn't mean it's safe,
Right.
can be bad for your lungs, can be bad for you. So with water mixable oils, the paint itself is not something I would say is toxic, because you're not necessarily breathing in negative fumes. You're not using a paint, as long as that paint is not something you're bathing in that's filled with lead. Cobra, for example, all the colors that I use are colors that do not contain lead. They're colors that are safe to use. There's no toxic mediums. I'm not using any turpentines. I'm not using any classic mediums that are toxic whatsoever. And you don't need turpentine at all to paint with the paint. You just use water. So from that perspective, it is unbelievably safe. Cobra has almost no odor at all. I can't smell it. Some people maybe, I haven't heard anybody say they could smell it, but I can tell you I can't smell it. So it's an unbelievably safe way to paint. What some people do have is an allergy to linseed oil. So I want to qualify this. So when some people react to oil paint, they're not reacting to oil paint. They're reacting to something that's binding in the oil.
Yes.
And so when you're saying toxic, I'm always cautious, because we never really know fully what we're reacting to in something till we isolate what those specific agents are and we take a look at what they are. I'm allergic to mold, dust, lots of different things. So for me, I react to traditional oil paints, not because of the paint, but because I react to turpentine. And so for me, water mixable was a game changer, and a high quality like Cobra water mixable is a total game changer for me.
We were actually talking about that this morning when I first came in, because we wanted, we want customers also to understand when they're using oil paint, how to clean up, and, getting rid of the rags and any of the liquids that are left over, like how do you dispose of it? So it's the same thing. That's why I've always believed in the water mixable oils, because it's just such an easy way to clean up. And yeah, I agree. I haven't had any strong effect by any smells from the Cobra.
No, not only that, one thing I will say also that we hear a lot of is it water-based paint? And the answer is no, it is still oil-based paint. It's just been combined with an emulsifier that allows water to be mixed in with it. So it operates very much like an oil. It just allows you to mix it with water if you want to. And it allows you to clean up with soap and water. So it is still an oil paint, and it performs like an oil paint. I find it dries a little bit faster than an oil paint.
Yes.
It's beautiful paint. I just can't say enough good things about it.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so someone is asking about the brushes, and are they, well, I think we've answered this one. Are they optimized for a specific media? And I think you mentioned that they can move between different media.
Yes. Yeah. Except one thing I will qualify in that statement, and I should be careful. Once you've used a brush for one medium, you
Right.
don't want to switch back and forth, because what will happen is no matter how good you clean a brush is you will have, for example, if I'd use this for oil, you will almost always have some little bit of residue tucked in the ferrule there, no matter
Right.
how good you clean it. Then if I go to use it with a water-based medium, that's how you get splitting and it doesn't like it. So it will start to kind of split it. So once you've picked a medium for a brush, I always recommend you stick with that medium.
Okay. And are they labeled so that you know which medium? I guess you could label it yourself if you're going to be using it for something specific.
Yes, once you've picked, I actually often used to see students, because I teach in so many different mediums, they would come to class with like a little brush case and it would say they would either sew on it or write on it oil. Their other brush case would say watercolor, their other brush case would say acrylic, or they'd put little tape at the bottom and it would be O, A. Yeah.
Okay, if there are any other questions, they can type them in and we'll try and answer it. I'm going to give that back to Andrea. I just wanted to show the kit that we have for our talk for next month. And just in case anybody was wondering what is included. So these are all chosen by Willow. So we've put together the kit. I know it's written backwards, but that's just the nature of the beast. So this is a Van Gogh block, and this is from the National Gallery, one of my favorite painters, Van Gogh. So that is included, so you get that. And then there is this is the Calia, this is the watercolor flowers. So this is a set of 4. I think that's one of the ones that you were just showing us. That's the shape of one of them.
Yeah.
And so that's also what you will get. And then there's also all of Willow's favorite watercolors. So we have a selection of Van Gogh. These are all of Willow's choices of colors. I'm not going to be able to hold them all up, but there are 7 colors that are included, and you are able to purchase either the colors on their own or in the whole kit. They're set up specifically for that. We've done special pricing because we want you to try all of the products that Willow recommends. So that is going to be available specifically for what we're offering next month, but we'll have them probably afterward as well. In case anybody has any questions about what we are stocking, we do have a lot of open stock. I did have to bring in the Dodo brushes just because of the name. And we have a number of the sets which are on our website and also in our store in case that you're interested. I think if we've answered all of the questions, I think we dazzled them again. I always say that because if there aren't that many questions, that means we've done it, Willow. I think we've accomplished what we were trying to talk about, just to introduce your fantastic line to everyone. We do get a lot of viewers from all across North America and often far beyond. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of incoming emails and questions after our chat. And again, in case anybody's interested, we will be joining Willow again in February the 11th. Please mark it down on your calendars. It'll be on our website. We'll be sending out emails and there'll be lots of social media. That's 2 o'clock Toronto time. So it'll be very exciting. And Willow, thank you so much for joining me today. What a treat.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you everyone for joining in.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And I look forward to seeing you all again. Willow, we will talk soon.
You
Bye-bye,
bet.
everybody. Thanks for
Thanks
joining.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.